Disorder in the court was the order of the day in the Chicago conspiracy trial, which ended 35 years ago this week. The trial began with 8 defendants accused of conspiring to come to Chicago to incite riots at the 1968 Democratic National Convention. As Rich Samuels told us in last night's edition of Chicago Stories, the Conspiracy 8 became the Conspiracy 7 after Judge Julius Hoffman severed defendant Bobby Seale from the trial. Tonight, Rich takes us back to the courtroom where tragedy turned into farce.
There was the day defendant Abbie Hoffman stood on his head at the defense table. The day Abbie Hoffman and Jerry Rubin tried to taunt Judge Julius Hoffman by wearing judicial robes to the trial.
We were trying to delegitimize the courtroom, basically, and we were using every technique we could think of to do that. And Jerry and Abbie appearing in those judges' robes was inflammatory to the judge.
Another time they brought in a birthday cake announcing that it was Ho Chi Minh's birthday, which certainly did not sit well with the government.
We liked Ho Chi Minh a lot, most of us. Tom and Dave had, I think, already been to Vietnam. I went to Vietnam in 1970 after the trial, and we were big supporters of Ho Chi Minh.
The witnesses called by the defense were some of the biggest names in the popular culture of the 60s. Drug guru Timothy Leary, author Norman Mailer, folk singer Pete Seeger, humorist and political activist Paul Krasner, who later claimed he dropped acid just before taking the stand. When poet Allen Ginsberg testified, he read a homoerotic poem and then ended an altercation between 2 lawyers with a Hindu chant.
And he started to go, Om, and everyone turned around at that point and stopped watching this scuffling stop because no one ever heard anyone sit up in the witness box and go, Om.
I think it was a way to counter negative spirits.
And he was chanting. And so we just, no one knew what to say or do. So we sat there and you could just hear it reverberate along the whole courtroom.
Just Om.
It was loud. That's what he did.
When singer Judy Collins took the stand, she attempted to sing Where Have All the Flowers Gone?
How far into the song did she get?
Not very far. The judge didn't. The judge really did not like the singing in the courtroom. He really did not like it.
Arlo Guthrie tried to sing too?
Arlo tried to do Alice's Restaurant, which you know, is about 25 minutes long, and the judge cut him off.
In the courtroom throughout the trial, there was an almost total lack of the decorum normally associated with a federal trial.
The defendants would yell out at the judge. They would yell racial slurs at the judge, religious slurs. They would use profanity.
They swore all the time. They swore at the judge.
Every 4-letter word that would come to mind, they would scream at him.
They swore when their defense attorneys would stand up to defend them. They swore all the time, and I mean any words you possibly could think of.
We would have in the courtroom street fights in the well of the courtroom. 15, 20, 30, 50 people punching, fighting it out. It's like being in the streets, watching a gang, fighting another gang.
Punching and socking, and then if somebody was disruptive in the spectator section, one of the guards would go over and do like a backflip into the spectator section and pull out that man and leave with him.
It was the most incredible thing you ever saw. The jury would be ordered out, and they would be going out looking back over their shoulders. The judge would be ducking down a little bit. Things were being thrown, and people were just slugging it out.
This is my first trial, and even then I knew trials shouldn't be like this.
And it happened over and over again. There's no transcript of it. Obviously, there's nothing to write down.
Ignoring a gag order, the defendants and their supporters held twice daily media briefings. They ingratiated themselves with a large portion of the press.
We were very aware of using the media as a theatrical stage, and we wanted to capture the imagination of particularly young people in this country. And we did it through a lot of different means.
It was a feeding frenzy by the media. It was pathetic. During the recesses, members of the media would come up to me and scream at me. I thought one was gonna fight with me. They were so emotionally involved.
At the close of the arguments, the jury was sent to deliberate. Immediately, Judge Hoffman began to read contempt citations and penalties, including prison terms for the defendants and their lawyers. The judge had telegraphed his intentions.
Early on, oh, he didn't hide it. He would, I believe his phrase was, you will be dealt with at the proper time. So they knew, even if a not guilty verdict came in, they knew that Judge Hoffman was going to send them off to jail.
Reading the specific incidents of contempt and the penalties for each defendant and lawyer took the judge some time. Unlike the proceedings to date, there were few outbursts.
I remember Abby Hoffman's wife said, "We're going to be dancing on your grave, Julius. You're not going to get away with this."
Defense attorney William Kunstler received the stiffest prison term for contempt, 4 years and 13 days. Pacifist David Dellinger fared worst among the defendants, 2 years, 5 months, and 16 days.
And there was a door they had to leave through to go to the jail and the lockup. And David Dellinger stood up, and I happened to be standing, as I said, in the first seat, first row, so I was right near where they were going to walk through. And he walked through, and he kissed me on the head, and he went through the door. I felt terrible.
The jury eventually found that 5 of the 7 were guilty, not of conspiracy, but of individual acts of incitement. Judge Hoffman meted out additional prison terms. Jerry Rubin tried to present him a copy of his book, Do It, with the inscription, "Judge, you radicalized more people than we ever did." Vice President Spiro Agnew applauded the verdict and condemned the defendants as misfits. But on appeal, the convictions, contempt citations, and prison terms were wiped away.
The case was reversed by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. It found trial errors. The case could have been retried, and it wasn't.
I think probably even in the higher reaches of the Justice Department and the White House, they realized we can't let this happen again. I mean, it really did bring disrepute on the judicial system.
When I look back on it, I think to myself, we did the right thing. We didn't let them prevent us from enforcing the laws, merely because we were afraid of the kind of publicity that was going to result. As to the ultimate conclusion, no question that the prosecution and the judge were maligned terribly by the trial and never were able to remedy that, to reconstruct that. The damage had been done.
Given your level of involvement in the movement, how did it come to pass that you were not indicted in all this?
I think that you may have noticed that no women were indicted. It was all men. And I think that women were not indicted in part because of the sexism of the movement and also because of the sexism of the world around us at that time. I just think they weren't going to indict any women. They didn't see us as leaders, and so I'm not saying I would have liked to have been indicted, which I know they all did say at some point. They said it was the Academy Award of the movement to be indicted, but I think that accounts for it.
That was your favorite trial?
Oh yes, forever and ever. I remember every bit of it. I could never forget it. I loved it. All right, this is the courtroom after Bobby was severed from the case, and Schultz is over here.
Verna has saved the sketches she drew at that trial. One of Judge Julius Hoffman she's framed because after the trial, the judge autographed it for her. To my friend Verna Sadock, with every good wish, Julius Hoffman.
And then he said, "If you show this to anyone, I'll see that you don't draw in this courtroom again." To this minute, Rich, I'm afraid to show that drawing.
To this day at the Federal Building, the Chicago conspiracy trial has had no sequel.
Well, one legal historian ranks that trial in the same category as the trial of Socrates and the trial of Galileo. And you can learn more about it by visiting our website at WTTW.com.
Rich, let's do a little Where Are They Now with the defendants. 3 have passed away, right?
That's right. Jerry Rubin, Abby Hoffman, and David Dellinger.
And Tom Hayden was here recently.
Tom Hayden, of course, you know, was briefly married to Jane Fonda. He's now married to actress Barbara Williams. But he, instead of spending time in jail, he did 10 years in the California State Assembly. He was elected there, and then 2 terms in the California State Senate. He is still writing, and he's now a visiting professor of urban environmental policy at Occidental College in Los Angeles.
And then there's Bobby Seale.
Bobby Seale, among other things, is pitching barbecue recipes, and he has one salt-free marinade that I'm going to try when the weather gets a little bit better and I can fire up the grill again.
Well, what about Jerry Rubin's girlfriend?
That's Nancy Kurshan. Well, she and Jerry split not long after the trial. She joined the Weathermen movement, and then she went to school and learned to become a social worker, and she's practicing social work in Chicago today.
What a story. Thank you, Rich.
It's a pretty amazing one, isn't it?
Good job.